and welcome to episode 2 of Geekly Talks Comics. I'm your host, Gary Driscoll, Archer on the website and the blog, and our panellists this week are...
Anastasia Catris, comic book artist.
Jeff Baker, home cinema installer.
So, on to our first topic. I've been so looking forward to this topic. Thank you, viewers. Favourite hentai picture? If I say it really lowly, hopefully no one will hear.
I have to say, when you first requested that we look this stuff up,
I
thought you meant anime. I thought surely he just means anime or manga.
That's right.
And then I asked, and I was like, oh, you request.
Yeah.
You request.
I did look up. I had a picture, just like a nice picture of Asuka from Neon Genesis Evangelion, the on 2 series, just like a little baby doll lady, and I was told, no, it's not a comic book character, it's not going to work.
Yeah, comic book hentai.
The best one that one of my friends will never let me forget is when I saw an image of Spider-Man with his daughter, and he was like, look at this, it's so funny, and I was just like, that's Peter's daughter from alternate universe that died. Now one, he's just like, still funny.
It amazes me how much call there is for things like The Simpsons and Family Guy and stuff like that, and you're just like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Very unrealistic characters.
Even the comic book stuff, like, not been funny, but Teen Titans.
Yeah!
They're teenagers!
Or you know,
wrong.
the obvious Robin and Batman stuff
No!
going on. And you're like, that's your ward, dude! That's your ward! The one I eventually did choose was a picture of Wonder Woman and both Superman and Batman. Mostly because it's quite a comical picture when you look into it. Just because Wonder Woman's...
We're looking for the description now.
Yeah, unlike a lot of the pictures, which were really, really disgusting and generally taking advantage of Wonder Woman quite considerably, as most of the female superheroes were being quite horribly taken advantage of. This one, she seems to be really enjoying it. Superman is just looking on, really confused, sort of stood behind her, again, feeling her up a little bit. She's really loving it, and both the guys just look like, what the hell are we doing?
Superman's just like, I really hope Lois isn't here.
Mine's Spider-Man and Gwen Stacy. Well, it looks like that.
It's Spider-Man.
It's a blonde woman.
Yeah, she's blonde. Yeah. Yeah. I think he's like behind her cup in the breasts. And that's the best one I could choose, to be honest.
Mine's is slightly similar to yours. I suppose in no sense that it's a kind of a threesome. Mine's is Wonder Woman, Tess Mercer, and Lex Luthor. Why are you stopping? So, next topic. Favourite creator-owned comic books. Anastasia, you're our expert. You go first.
I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I mean, because I go to lots of comic book conventions a lot of the time, not just the big ones, not just the Showmasters and the MCMs, but the sort of little local ones. You do get to meet a lot of the sort of indie creators out there, and there are some just fantastic books being created that obviously either haven't been picked up or just aren't big enough that everyone knows about them yet. And the other good thing is you get into the comic book community as well. You get to know these creators, and they're sort of working together, and you help them with their Kickstarter or whatever. So there's lots of people out there making some fantastic books. One of my favourites at the moment is a comic called Afterlife Inc. And it's created by a guy called John Locke through John Locke Comics. And basically Afterlife Inc. is about a guy called Jack Fortune who dies. He's a con man, and he dies. And he goes into the afterlife, and it's in complete disarray. So he decides to make it into a corporation. He creates a business out of it. And he creates Afterlife Incorporated. And it's fantastic, 'cause it's loads of individual stories, and they've got a really good scope of just giant sort of storylines that they can create, and little ones as well, because obviously so many people, fictional and historical, can be involved. Also, different religions are involved, different gods are involved. It takes on so much stuff. And there's a fantastic story which is to do with Arthur Conan Doyle, for example. It's just like, it's got a really, really good sort of range of stories, and it's it shows you what sort of the hope of indie comics at the moment is, that they have so much to play with. They don't have any restrictions. They are just like...
A lot of the lottery licenses are freed up now, so you can obviously Sherlock Holmes is a
Yeah.
fictional character, but you know, you have that idea, you can use Arthur Conan Doyle,
Yeah,
you can use
another
different
perfect
characters.
example of that is Kill Shakespeare, which is another fantastic creator-owned comic,
Yeah.
which is sort of rewriting the Shakespeare plays as if Shakespeare was a real person and all of these people were actually in his life.
Oh.
And there's some fantastic, and it just brings in all of the Shakespeare plays
Yeah.
with all of these characters being real people, and it's a really, really good sort of comic series as well. That's another great example. So there's loads out there at the moment that are sort of either going with Creative Commons or making, you know, unique characters like Jack Fortune as well, and they're really sort of some really imaginative stuff out there at the moment.
So if you had to choose, like, what one would you say is the favourite one, like, of all the creator-owned comics reading at the minute? Being aware that you can't have shameless plugs.
Shameless plugs. Well, I don't read my own, so I can't possibly say. I write them, but no.
Well, you should.
No, I definitely say Attal, I think, is one of my favourites out there. Another one
Yeah.
is London Horror Comic,
Okay.
which is a brilliant anthology series. It's all like miniature, almost, they remind me of Future Shocks, the sort of 2000 AD Future Shocks. Each unique story has like a nice little twist to it. Some of them are very funny, some of them are very dark.
Okay.
And generally each issue sort of mixes funny, dark, funny. So you get that nice sort of little range of comics there. So London Horror Comics is one I definitely recommend, and Attal, I think, as well.
One just sprung to mind actually. A friend of mine who's writing and drawing a comic called Dexter's Half Dozen. Dave Clifford. He's a great guy, good artist as well. And he's just got a comic out now. I think it's been picked up in America as well. And that's about a group of mercenaries during World War II, almost sort of Indiana Jones, like crossed with the supernatural, like Hellboy.
Oh,
So it's like that's very, very good.
So you would recommend taking a
Absolutely,
look at that?
yeah, absolutely recommend it. Yeah.
Okay. For me, it's kind of I read a lot of comics, but I don't know many like creator-owned comics to read. I'll be honest, what a big one for me is The Crow by James O'Barr, but I have to confess that I've never actually read it the whole way through. As much as I love The Crow, as much as I rave about it and rave about James O'Barr, I haven't read it the whole way through. But I just think it's fantastic what he did, and the catharsis of him doing it, but then publishing himself and then sticking to his guns throughout all media.
It was a
doing
very brave comic to do.
But a comic that I love, it's not a published comic as such, as a web comic. One called Ctr-Alt-Delete. I love Ctr-Alt-Delete. I know it's probably one of those like student comics, but I've literally been reading Ctr-Alt-Delete for about 11 years now, and it's just so funny. It started off, it was by two characters, Ethan and apologies, they've been out of the book now for about 6 months. Because the creator Rick on the Ring Ants has done it now about player 1, 2, 3 and 4. So it started off as a gaming comic and it's gone back to that. Ethan and Lucas, it was originally about two gamers called Ethan and Lucas. And Lucas was very sensible, very much just, the straight man to Ethan's comedy. And it's just all these mad adventures. Ethan, gets a job in a game store, and he literally 5 minutes later, getting his first paycheck, goes back in, bags in every hand, bag hanging out of his mouth. Hands his wage packet in, and he's like, here. And it was funny for me because I thought, it's such a funny thing. And then I got working for GameStop back home. That was literally the first thing I did with my paycheck. I just went back into the store, I had 10% discount, I grab all this. But it was a comic that evolved from gaming and funny things like, geek culture. Not just gaming, we branched into Star Wars. A famous one was Ethan getting really excited for Star Wars Episode 2, and he can't wait to go out, and he's all dressed as a Jedi. And Lucas is throwing things at him of Jar Jar Binks, no, you can't put me down, pod racing, no, I can't move it. He goes, okay then, 2 words. Midi-chlorians. And Ethan just goes, and just storms back off the room.
So many young Jedis everywhere.
And it was just funny, another gag that he constantly run through is that every few issues Ethan will get attacked by a ninja. So on the year anniversary, Tim, the author, wrote himself into the comic, and Ethan just appearing as a ninja and just attacking him, and he was like, as Tim's lying in the ground, Ethan just looks over and he says, yeah, it's not nice, is it? And then slowly it went from this like really geeky, well, it was still a very geeky comic, but it went from a gaming comic to, he started introducing stories. He introduced a character of Lila, who became Ethan's girlfriend, and you had these funny stories with Ethan just been daft, trying to build he built a robot from an Xbox, but he'd do other things like trying to work out the properties of custard and how it could be used as cement. Just really silly things that most of us would never think of, with these very sort of serious and touching stories. And it was just a beautiful comic, went on. And as I say, since rebooted it now, that it's what he used to do is side comics, player 1 and player 2. is now, that's the main comic. You've got the 4 players, they live in a house, and every week is something different to do with gaming. So all the big topics, they do this. And another like favourite creator in comic mine, this is a blatant shameless plug, not a shameless plug, and I apologize, is Geek Pillow Talk by Miss Ctr-Alt-Del. I found out about the comic she told me about it, I read it and I love it, I would follow it. And Geek Pillow Talk is based on stories from geeks. They've sent them in about couples, geek couples, and their conversations. And it is, I love it. And I'm not saying it because you're right, genuinely, I love Geek Pillow Talk. It's such a, it started out as a series of stories. Just people tell, oh yeah, funny stories, like a story from a guy took me back home. He was in bed with his girlfriend, and she said to him, "What are you thinking?" And he said, "If I do a double splash coming out of the somersault, I can beat that bastard." And she's like, "What?" And he said, "Street Fighter 2, if I do a double splash coming out of the somersault, I can beat that bastard." And she just went and slapped him. She said, "I'm lying in bed and you're thinking about video games?" And he said, "Well, you did ask what I was thinking about."
Essentially, when it sort of started out, kind of almost from the whole Big Bang Theory thing. It kind of came off from that, and the sort of idea that...
I'm assuming that's in like a direct attack.
No, not at all. It's just it sort of cemented it in my head more than anything, that geeks are seen in the media as these sort of like sexless sort of best friends who are there for like being the sort of pillar that, you lean on them when you're sad about your actual relationship. They don't have normal relationships, and it sort of stemmed from that. And it's the idea that these two characters, Alex and Marcus, are an extremely sexual couple, and but they're geeks, and all of their jokes that are to do with sex and to do with their love life and their relationship are all to do with like the geekish stuff that goes on with their life. And there's one issue that I'm writing at the moment actually, which is basically about them playing Gears of War 2 Horde mode.
Right. And
they're playing Horde mode, and Marcus chooses the base, because at the beginning of Horde mode you choose a base, and Marcus chooses the base, and he chooses the worst base. There is one on like one of the levels which is terrible, because if you choose it you're right out in the open.
Yeah.
And this is based on real life. Chose this base right out in the open, and obviously everyone starts attacking, and Alex turns around to Marcus and is like, "Right, you are not choosing where we're going to live when we live together. This is not happening." Just raging on the video game. And that's the sort of stuff that these people talk about. And I got loads of people from Tumblr sending me in these amazingly cute, romantic, but also very funny stories. And it was things like, you're in love with someone when you're in the middle of having sex and your Spock plushie collection falls off the shelves, and you have to stop to put everything back in the right place before you continue. These are the sort of things I was getting sent in by complete strangers, but they're from real stories, and it's really fun.
So there we go. So that's our favourite creator-owned comics. Thank you very much, folks. So our next topic: favourite blind character.
I had to think about this one. I didn't actually realise that she was blind until I looked more into it. Because when I was younger, I used to read a lot of the Rogue comics specifically. She was my favourite X-Men character. Yeah. And Rogue had foster parents, who was obviously Mystique being her foster mother, and her other foster mother, Destiny. She actually had two mothers.
Oh, okay. And
Destiny was an awesome character. She's a precog.
Yeah.
And she's actually blind. The reason I never knew about it so much is because I had to look a bit into the lore for it. But she's actually blind, but she's a precog, so she can actually see everything before it happens. So even though she can't physically see it, she knows exactly what's going to happen, so she can sort of preempt an attack, for example, and things like that. She was an awesome character. I got introduced to her in the video games, funnily enough, as well, and she's in the PlayStation, the old PlayStation X-Men games.
Right, okay.
And she was just a really cool character. And the more I looked into it, I was like, because obviously the one to sort of think about is obviously Daredevil and all that sort of stuff. And he's brilliant, but I was just like, there's got to be more blind characters out there.
What would you, Jeff? Like, who's your favourite?
Daredevil, I'd say, but then going on the safe option. Just the way they handle the character, just think it's really well done.
He's got a cool backstory as well.
That's it.
I do like his backstory.
And the thing is, in credit to the writers, the stories were that good. They back in the 60s because the comic wasn't a big comic when it came out, but they used to print it in Braille. And they gave it out to the kids in blind schools. So the kids, he was literally a hero, a blind hero for blind kids. Yeah. So there was this man who terrible accident as a child, become blind, grows up, becomes a lawyer, and this was an inspiration for kids. It's just like, look, yes, it's terrible disability, but
you know, you still can do so much. You know, you don't have to be limited by it. Sexy character gets forgotten. He has learned this martial art. He's trained his body up. He's honed his skills, honed his senses. You know, Matt Murdock, as great as he is, still had the accent.
Yeah.
Stick has nothing. He just has pure sense, and he's trained all these heroes. So for me, like, he's my personal favorite.